Hi everyone, it's that time of year again when I get to do my revision presentation, and obviously I've done this one a few times now, so I should be getting it right, or I should at least be doing it better than I've done it in the past. And I think I've got a really good compromise here that fits the different audiences that I have to this presentation. After years of trying, I should probably have getting it about right. But first things first, let's get a few things clear right out the gate. First of all, well done. This has been, God, how many times we're going to find ourselves saying this, hopefully the last time. This has been a term unlike any other. And if you think about where we were at the start of this term, at the end of last term, start of the summer term, this time last year, by crikey, we've come such a long way, and you've done so well. You really have done incredibly well. Congratulations. Most importantly, I think we can be very, very confident that the best is yet to come. We're building up to a set of mini assessments that are really going to allow you to shine. You've been working towards this. You've been gearing up all of your efforts towards this very, very short, sharp assessment period. And I have absolutely no doubt that you guys are going to absolutely smash this. No doubt at all. So by the end of this term, you'll know two more things. First of all, you're going to know the schedule of your mini assessments. We'll get those published by the end of this term. And you should also know exactly what's in and what's not in. So you'll be able to target your revision very effectively over this Easter break. And that's really what this particular presentation is about. So, I mean, some things haven't changed. Revision is and will always be a mental game. You've got to get your head in the right place, or it's just not going to work. And all of the other things I've always talked about, like routine and place and all of that, that still holds, okay? You've got to have a routine. You've got to have somewhere where you can work effectively, somewhere where you're not going to be interrupted, somewhere where you're not going to be disturbed, somewhere where you're not going to be distracted by your stuff or anybody else's stuff. All of that's still very much the case, but I'm going to come at it from a slightly different direction on this particular occasion, largely because I need to make sure that when we're talking about revision, we're talking about two different audiences, two very, very different constituencies. We've got this lot, and then we've got this lot. Now, you're going to fit into one of those boxes. Either revision is something that you absolutely hate, or you rather enjoy it. But I think always the question is, how do we achieve balance? How can we get enough done, but at the same time get to that magic bit at the end where we have the pen drop moment? We say, right, I'm done. I can go off and do something else, because you need to do something else. You've got to balance yourself over this holiday. Yes, you should be working probably harder than you've ever worked before, but it shouldn't be completely to the exclusion of getting a little bit of downtime. You need to come back next term ready to go again. So there has to be a balance achieved over this particular holiday. And as ever, whether it's about starting or whether it's about knowing when to stop, the answer is balance. The answer is getting that balance right. And you can only get that right if you have some targets. Give yourself some targets. And again, that's what I'm really hoping to get across in this particular presentation. So let's start by seeing what the school working week looks like. Now, most of you out there, you're doing 3 subjects. You'll have 2 teachers, so that means you basically get 3 lessons in each teacher a week. That equates over 50 minutes per lesson to a working time each week, taught time each week of 900 minutes, or indeed 15 hours. So that's what you would normally get in terms of the teaching week. Now, I know that on top of that, you've got prep, you've got clinics, you've got all that other stuff, but let's just focus on this for the time being, I think, okay? So over the Easter break, we take that 15 hours, we're running that across 3 weeks. Effectively, what you're losing is 45 hours of taught time. 45 hours of taught time. Now, hold that number in your head, because now we're going to look actually at the Easter break, and this is what it looks like. So we all come back to school here. We know all about that already. We know they're coming back to school there. So how much work should you be doing? Well, let's mark some days off, okay? And we'll start off, obviously you're not going to work on Saturday, Sunday, fine. Easter, Good Friday, we'll give you that off. Let's get them all in there. So there we go. Now, the more astute of you will recognize that there are 10 days marked off there. So we've just marked off 10 days. I'm even giving you a Friday off. I don't know, I'm extraordinarily generous there. So what does that leave you with? Well, what that leaves you with is 12 working days. 12 working days where you can sit down and get a shift on. Yeah? So 10 days off and 12 working days. Now, let's just go back to this model here. We said that each working week was 15 hours of taught time, plus 3 weeks, that's 45 hours. If we work that back into that model, then what we find out is we've got 45 hours of lessons missed, again, not counting clinics and whatnot and blah, blah, blah. So what does that work out at over that 12-day period? Well, that comes down to 3 hours and 45 minutes a day. So in other words, if you do 3 hours and 45 minutes a day, you will cover the taught time, all right? That's your absolute minimum, because the 3 hours and 45 minutes, that's ridiculous. You can do that. You're so much better than that. And this is where it shunts back to you. How much better than that are you? How big do you want this jump to be over the Easter holidays? Because again, as I've said in previous presentations, the holiday is your opportunity to change lanes. Okay, you're here, you can move to that lane there. How are you going to do that? Well, you're going to set yourself a target. What are you going to do? Well, here you go. You can work out those numbers for yourselves. 8 hours a day probably sounds quite a lot, but that's what you do in the working day if you're doing 9 till 5. Now, I don't know how many people do 9 to 5 nowadays. Realistically, very few. You're not going to find any teacher that does 9 to 5. And most of the folks at home, they're not going to be doing 9 to 5 either. But if you're at your desk at 9 o'clock, 9 o'clock in the morning or 8:30, and you work through till 12:30, and then you give yourself an hour, then you're going to be knocking off at 5:30. Now, I'm not going to go through all of the revision schedules because I've done those all before, and you can talk through those with your tutors. You know how to organize a working day. You know, you've got your timetable here, for instance. You can replicate that and add some stuff off the back. What I want you to focus on is how big a jump do you want at the end of this? So 12 working days. What's a reasonable target for you? This is what you're going to do. And remember, I gave you that cheeky Friday off. You chuck that one back in and you can get up to the magic 100 hours. I keep coming back to the example of Max Shannon. Some of you will remember Max, lovely kid. We're going back quite a few years now, 2-3 years. And he came back to me over the Easter break. And he said, "Sir, I've done 100 hours." He had done 100 hours over that Easter term, sorry. And he changed lanes, and he's now president of the Business Society down at Exeter University, having a very good time. Thank you very much indeed. Look him up on LinkedIn, super kid. He'll tell you all about business studies down at Exeter. He's on the Enabling Futures page. Go and have a look at that. So this is what you can do if you give yourself that target, and then if you organize all of your efforts towards that target. That's what Kennedy was talking about when he said we do these things. We set ourselves this challenge because by the better organization of ourselves, we can achieve these goals. That's a very, very rough quotation. Don't look it up. So, how much then is enough? This is, again, for you to decide. You've seen this slide so many times, I really don't have to go through it again. It's all about trajectories. It's all about how we think it's going to go, how it's really going to go, and then how do you want this to go? How big do you want that jump to be? How much work effectively can you get done over this break that will allow you to change lanes, to enable you to change gains, so that when we come back and we hit those summer assessments, those mini assessments, you are going to absolutely fly. That is your chance to shine. That is your chance to show us what you've got and just how good you are. And we know how good you are. You just have to prove it to everybody else. So, just a couple of other things about the break and how to organize yourselves effectively. Place, okay? You have to have that place. You have to have somewhere that is yours, somewhere where you can work without interruption and without distraction. And you've got to go home and say, look, I know everybody's going to be squabbling for space when you get back there. It's going to be battle royale. But you have to say, look, I'm here for 3 weeks. I'm back for 3 weeks. I need to work effectively for 3 weeks. For 3 weeks, can I please have dibs on the study or the spare room or wherever it is you work? Because you need to get your head down and you need to work constructively over those 3 weeks. Okay, that's all it is. Get into that routine. We've talked about this at great length. Talk to your tutors about it. Get a routine and stick to it. And once you've followed the routine, once you've done a good day's work, then give yourself a break. Be nice to yourself. Now, the shop's open, what is it, April 12th? Pub's open at some point. Whatever it is that represents a good thing for you, whether it's going out and having a Mars bar, going out and having a walk, or whatever floats your boat, reward yourself. If you've done a good day's work, then do it. And don't forget, it's about how much is enough. If you've set yourself an 8-hour target, when you get to the end of the 8 hours, drop the pen. I'm done. I don't need to work in the evenings. I don't need to work at weekends because my schedule will enable me to get to the target that I have set for myself. So be nice to yourself. Rewards. Know what's coming. We know what's coming, so make sure you know exactly what's being assessed. Give yourself that specification check. Dr. Potter has a really good routine. This was a 3-stage routine whereby you start very broad and then get increasingly specific. That's the other way around, actually. You start very broad and then you get increasingly general as you go through this process. Really, really good idea. Speak to Dr. Potter, speak to your tutor, get some really good tips on how to organize your revision. But make sure you know what's coming and make sure you know what you know and what you don't know, and then you can start to revise effectively. So know when it's coming. Again, organize yourself. We'll get that scheduled to you by the end of term so you know exactly how to organize your time and how best to allocate your considerable resources. So whether your problem is starting or if it's stopping, it doesn't realize the solution is exactly the same. It's about setting targets, and setting those targets will enable you to find that critical balance that will allow you to get the most out of this particular break and to come back and show us exactly what we've got at the other side. So get organized, get your targets in place, get working, and then have a cracking Easter. And we look forward to seeing you when you get back. Have a great break, and see you in a few weeks. Well done.